Hello. For my lifespan interview video, I chose to interview my dad and my daughter. My dad, male, 65 years old, so he just started retirement. So he's in his late adulthood life stage. Cultural identification, grew up with Christian values, and he's retired military. So that kind of, in a nutshell, defines him culturally. And then from my daughter, she's a female, age about 4, or is 4. Life stage development, she's in early childhood. Cultural identification would be Christian values, military brat. She was born in South Carolina and bounced around coast to coast in her short 4 years of life. So she's got quite exposure to life. So without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so Dad, would you say you are in middle adulthood or late adulthood?
Probably late.
Okay, and what makes you feel like that? Why do you feel that way?
Well, I'm 65. Um, it's if mid. I mean, I don't know what they count as the exact numbers, but I'm in the last quarter of that period. So I think or close to the last quarter.
Yeah, yeah. You're 65 is the beginning of late adulthood, but um, you talked about how you do the go go, the slow go, and the no go. In the book, it talks about um, the young old, the old, and the oldest old. And so essentially, how it describes in the book is you're in the young old, which is the most enjoyable part of life, is how it describes it, because you're, um, you know,
I can see that.
yeah, yeah. So, okay, and then yeah, so basically, late adulthood is described as the golden years of adulthood. You experience relatively good health and social engagement, knowledge and expertise, and adaptive flexibility in daily living. You have strong performance in attention, memory, and crystallized intelligence. Those who are young old, or the go go years, are the most like midlife. You work for pleasure and not income, and live independently. Um, it's an unusual age in that people are considered both in old age but not in old age. So that's kind of the doctrinal explanation of what late adulthood is. Do you feel like you relate to that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely. That's how I would characterize my life right now.
Yeah, I figured it kind of described it perfectly, especially being retired from your the main job you had when we were still living at the house, and then now you're kind of working for pleasure here and there you know, and then you're enjoying life, and you're definitely crystallized intelligence. Um,
Well, I guess I didn't want to mention that because I'm not sure that's true, but that's sort of a matter of opinion as opposed to a fact
yeah,
because I'm not tested in any way.
yeah, I gotcha.
But I do feel like people ask me for my view on things, which at least from I have a lot of experience that I can offer.
Yeah. The next question, which is you feel like you're financially independent. You have fewer responsibilities, or at least responsibilities that are enforced on you by work or a third party, and so you're able to pursue leisurely activities and opportunities for self fulfillment. Um, so it sounds like you're experiencing exactly how the book says you're supposed to experience retirement, which is a good
You
thing.
can read the book.
And so nature versus nurture. I'm pretty positive that you understand that concept. Do you feel that nature is more indicative of how you've turned out, or do you feel like nurture is more of a guiding source in your life? Which one influenced you most?
That's a good question. I think that there's both to a degree. I think some of where I am is based on nature, and some is based on nurture. I think that there are my experience growing up led me to be less what's the word? I was pretty risk averse in my choices because of my early experiences. And I think that had some influence on where I am in life. Because if you avoid risk, you are not the one who's going to start a company. You're not the one who's going to step out. You're gonna take the road that is more certain rather than the road that is well. The book is called The Road Less Traveled, but what I want to say is you're not going to take the risky road, which can lead to no risk, no reward, and the greater the risk, the higher the reward. So I tend to be more risk averse, and that's a little bit of nature. It's mostly nature's. My experiences growing up led me that way.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you think so in your life have you experienced any sort of midlife crisis? I put that in quotes because there's research that proves that that's not actual a thing. Um, it's just a normal part of life. Yeah. Or have you? So any midlife crisis, or do you just think it's like a period of enlightenment where you've kind of just had your priorities correct?
I didn't have really crisis. I mean, I think what happens is you start to realize that there is an end to your physical abilities and a lot of whatever it is that you want to measure. There is an end. Up until a certain point in your life, you don't know. You're not dealing with the fact that life could end. And I think that when you figure that out, you might feel like, well, I have no time now to learn how to ride a motorcycle, or I have no time to do this, that, or the other thing. So you might feel like you have to go out and do that. I don't feel like I had a crisis, but I did start to realize that there is an end to certain things. And you don't have to deal with that when you're young. I think I mentioned it before. There's, for the early part of your life, you have dreams about what you want to do and dreams to achieve and goals and things like that. And then later in life, those things have to turn into memories because you don't have any time left to think about dreams.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that when the girls are born, that's kind of I feel like that was my first checkpoint in realizing that whatever dreams I've had, you probably need to start executing on them, or else they're eventually gonna float away and become memories or even regrets.
Yeah,
But
could be regrets. I mean, I feel like when I watched Grandpa change, when he had to sell his Airstream trailer, or their trailer, and stop traveling, you start to realize that you can't do everything forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so that changes things.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I don't think I would have. I don't know. Mom might disagree. but I don't think I had a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
I came to the realization that I need to do something or get off, or take it off my list.
Yep.
So I think that there was a sense of urgency that I developed because of that.
Okay. Yeah. And then what advice would you give to somebody, stepping into retirement or the late adulthood stage?
I've talked to a couple people before. There's a lot of interference. Are you able to hear what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. So I think that you probably are overestimating the amount of resources you need for retirement. And it's good to have multiple ways of checking your math, which is what you have to do. You have to figure out this how many years I expect to live, and this is what I need to live, and figure out the money, the resources that you need to do it. It helps to pinpoint your numbers as soon as you can. For example, when we moved from Virginia to North Carolina, we were able to accurately forecast the housing cost in retirement.
Mm.
But if you're like, in our case, if we had stayed in Virginia and then we were going to retire and go somewhere else, that would be an unknown.
Yeah.
And it's hard to predict and then hard to forecast what you need to make that happen. So anyway, I think there's a couple of things I would say. I would say you want to get comfortable with the forecast and then map your resources to that forecast. And mostly you're going to probably be better off than you think, but it's good to have multiple checks on that math, so to speak, because you don't have the luxury of being wrong. So I did that. We had several advisors. I had a computer model that I paid for to figure out the plan for the future. And once I became comfortable with it, then we were able to pull the trigger and retire. But you have to define retirement too. Retirement may be not working, or it may be just a different kind of phase of work. Where, if you're like my shipmate who owns his own company, he's 70 years old, and he's trying to put together an exit strategy where he can transition to what retirement means for him. And retirement for him may mean becoming the chairman of the board instead of the CEO of his own company. So when you try to figure out retirement, how to retire, you have to decide what retirement is first.
Okay. Do you have hiccups right now? No? Okay.
Hey, my arm crossed to you, and you're crossed to me.
Okay, so first question. Ready? Do you think you're a big kid, a little kid, or a little baby?
Big kid.
A big kid? Okay, why do you think big kid?
Because I got older.
You got older?
It was my birthday this week.
Yeah? How old are you now?
4.
Oh, okay. So do you think you're in your childhood right now? Do you think you're in your early childhood or your middle or your late childhood?
My late childhood and mine.
So you're more in the early childhood because you're 4. So you're going to experience things a little bit differently than kids in their late or middle childhood. Okay. So the next question, number 2. So your childhood, early childhood, is described as you're busy learning language. right? You're gaining a sense of yourself and a greater independence. And you're beginning to learn the workings of the physical world. Okay? So do you, based off of that, do you think, do you like learning new words? So when you used to call things, when you'd say, oh, that tastes bad, now you say, oh, that tastes terrible, right?
All types of disgusting.
Or disgusting, yeah. So you enjoy learning new words to describe things, right?
Animals. Disgusting.
Disgusting. Yep.
Disgusting. Doing that.
Okay. Okay, and then you like to do more things independently, right? So when Daddy goes to feed our dog Kona, and you want to help, do you let Daddy help you? Why not?
Yes.
Why not? Why do you want to do things by yourself? Is that just how you want to do it? That's
I work at stupid like myself because I want to come again.
okay. That works. And so exploring the physical world, right? When you go for a bike ride, do you want to ride on the flat ground or do you want to go down the hills? Hills. So you're exploring your limits with the physical world around you, right? Yeah. When you go on the swings, do you want to go low or high? And then when you go, down the slide, do you want to go slow or fast? Yeah. So you're testing the limits and you're exploring the limitations around you. Do you agree with that? Would you say that sums up your personality right now?
No.
No.
I mean, yes.
I think it does. So in summary, after interviewing my dad and my daughter, we talked about various topics like their perspective on the life stage that they're currently in, the interactions with the world around them and how they perceive the world, the experiences that have shaped them to where they are today, and then some of the actions that they've taken to be where they are in their current life stage. It was interesting to get two different ends of the spectrum, with my daughter being early childhood and my dad being 65 and in retirement. And I thought that bookended the class pretty well to interview people in those life stages. I didn't really learn anything new than what was described in the book. I think that the psychologists who have described the life stages do really accurately, especially with my dad. You could definitely tell that the things that he was experiencing were straight out of the book, and yeah, I think it was really well described throughout the course. Obviously, with them being at two different ends of the spectrum, the interview certainly depicted that. My daughter's still learning how to have conversations and learning new words and just experiencing the world around her. That was apparent in the interview. And, my dad being at the end of the life stages, in the young old category, though, he certainly had life experience, had a very calculated method of how he was going to execute retirement, and definitely had more insight into how, nature and nurture has somewhat shaped his life. So, yeah, in conclusion, that sums up the lifespan interview.